So I just got out of seeing Terrifier 3, and I kind of had to pull off a bit of a ways away from the main movie area because I didn't want people to look into my car while I'm talking on the camera and having people go like, "What are you doing? What's going on? You recording a vlog? Are you Logan Paul?" Because, I look a lot like Logan Paul. So I just kind of pulled off and I figured I would record a video of my thoughts on not just Terrifier 3, but the Terrifier franchise as a whole, because I figured what better way to talk about that series of films than when the third one is still fresh in people's minds, when it just come out, and it's one that I'm kind of fascinated by, just from a movie-making standpoint, from the intention of the filmmaker, from a lot of different angles. And what better way to start than to go in chronological order. So I believe the first one, Terrifier, came out in 2016, I want to say, directed by Damien Leone. Damien Leone is the writer and director of all three of these films. And it's very clear that they're of his vision. They're kind of his children, It's very much his voice in each of these films. It doesn't feel like any of them deviate from what he wants this series to be. The first one I had watched maybe like less than a month ago, probably like 3 weeks ago or so, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a decent slasher film. You could tell that it's a lower budget movie. It is very much only concerned with the gore and the kills and a little bit of the atmosphere, but really it's relegated to one location, which is just kind of like this shitty abandoned warehouse / factory setting. And you can tell that the movie kind of wears the limitations of the budget proudly on its sleeve. Like, it's very contained. It's very much in its own world of, we're just going to have this clown, Art the Clown, kind of wander around, and whoever he comes across, he's going to kill. And the kills are going to be fascinating, gory, spectacular, whatever word you want to use to describe the way he dispatches his victims. But other than the performance from David Thornton as Art the Clown, who is very good as the character in all three of these films, other than him and the effects of the kills, there really isn't much that this movie has going for it. And I kind of forgive it a little bit, given the budget and given the limitations of the film. Obviously, when you're dealing with a movie of that scale, I almost kind of have to grade it on a curve where, something like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World or Star Wars or whatever, you watch those movies and it's like, okay, they have like unlimited resources at their disposal, so every single choice you have to scrutinize. Whereas this one, it's a little bit more forgivable in that, okay, maybe they just couldn't get more locations because it wasn't in the budget. Maybe they couldn't get better actors because it wasn't in the budget, so on and so forth. Not that you can't criticize those elements of a movie, because you definitely can, but it only goes so far as to how well they could have possibly conceivably used the budget of their movie to get the best result that they could. And I think the budget for the first film was like $65,000 or something like that. I'll put a correction on the screen to give you an idea. And I think it made about $400,000, so it didn't even crack like $500,000, the first movie. But I liked it okay. I thought it was fine. It was very clear that they wanted to set up for more movies, which is exactly what Damien Leone got. So I gave that a 5 out of 10. Now, Terrifier 2, I watched that not long after the first one, maybe like a week after the first movie. And I thought that there were a lot of things that were clearly improved because of a larger budget. They had more variety of locations. The effects were noticeably better. Not that they were bad in the first movie. It's just that it was clear that they had more room to play. They had a lot more extras, a lot more people involved just in the movie's space to make it feel more alive and real. Whereas the first movie, I think, maybe had like, what, 8 actors or something total. This one had a lot more business. Just a lot more like set piece locations, more of a focus on characters and relationships. And you can tell that they had a lot more to play with in terms of like money and space and time, probably, whatever. And I find it interesting that it still manages to stick to what the spirit of the first film is, which is mostly just Art the Clown going around killing people. Now, where I get kind of hung up on Terrifier 2, which will lead into Terrifier 3, is I don't know if I've ever seen a series of films that was so disconcerted with every other element of it besides the effects and the performance from Art the Clown, from David Thornton. Other than those two things, almost everything else in the film feels like an afterthought. Like, the writing is very base level. It just kind of feels like it's in that first draft stage. Maybe it could have used from some plussing up of some people looking over it and going like, maybe you can make this tighter, maybe you can make this a little more concise. This feels a little bit cliched, this feels a little bit ham-fisted, right? But the movies are not concerned with those elements of it at all. Even when you're given a larger budget and you have the trust of the audience to fall back on, you're still kind of relying on the same old tricks of, well, we have to make these characters obvious archetypes, because otherwise maybe the audience won't understand who these characters are supposed to be and what they're supposed to represent. And it's like, you have to have a little bit more faith in the people you're showing these movies to, because audiences can pick up when something is off. They can pick up when something feels stilted or cliched, or it just doesn't flow well with everything else. There's like a huge tonal shift going on there. When characters talk to each other like they're just action figures and you pull a string on their back and they're meant to say a series of phrases, it almost feels like video game acting in a way, where you look at kind of a AAA game, but maybe they weren't that concerned with the acting. Say a Bethesda game. The dialogue almost feels of that caliber, where it kind of feels like pre-recorded actors are talking at each other, but maybe they weren't in the same room, which is weird because obviously these actors are in the same room and they're performing off of each other. And it just is distracting. It's a little bit distracting when you're going from these brutal kills to a scene of Sienna and her family setting up Christmas decorations or Halloween decorations, whichever movie you want to think of. And it's kind of like this cheesy back and forth. And some could argue, oh, this is sort of an homage from those cheesy slasher films from the 70s and 80s. And I might agree with that if it didn't feel like the movies wanted you to have a connection to the characters. And because Sienna is such a central figure in both the second and the third movie, it feels like they really want you to care about her, and it doesn't feel like it's in a way of like, oh, you know, this is just schlocky dialogue on purpose to match the tone of those older horror films. It's like, no, I don't think so. I think this is supposed to be something that we're supposed to latch onto and take seriously. And if the writing doesn't hold that up, then what else is there besides the blood and the gore and the shock of it all? So that'll kind of lead into the third film, which I'm sort of already touching on. This movie is like Terrifier 2 doubled up. And what I mean by that is it feels like the things that I didn't like about Terrifier 2 just seem to be a little bit more amplified in this movie. I like how consistent it is. You can go from the second one into the third one and you can think, okay, yeah, there's an obvious connectivity between these two films. A lot of the same characters return. Obviously, it centers on the same character of Art the Clown doing his thing, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, the effects are still really good. I would say in Terrifier 3, the effects are at their peak. Like, The effects are used the best in this movie out of every other film in the series. Like, they just clearly ramp it up to a point of ridiculousness, but I'm a fan of that sort of thing, especially when it's done in a way that is like, it's effectively brutal. It's effectively kind of skin crawling in the way that it depicts the violence, and I kind of like the misery of it, you know, juxtaposed with, obviously, Art the Clown is making these jokes kind of in between everything going on. He's, you know, silently laughing the whole time. He's like, that was my poor impersonation of Art the Clown, please forgive me. But there's something to be said about the fact that I really want these films to have more to them. Not just in terms of like the kills and everything, because those are still good, and like the effects are great in of themselves, but everything else just, it still feels like an afterthought. It still feels a little bit lazy to me, in that if someone else could just look over the dialogue or look over the script or anything and just touch up a little bit of what the characters are saying, make it feel a little bit more tight, not so cliched and predictable and just like obvious, then I think that these movies would have a lot more going for them. And I'm not saying to make it so that it appeals to a wider audience. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying there's a way to make it so that it doesn't feel like the movie is falling apart whenever characters talk to each other. Take Mandy, for example. Mandy is a film that has very little dialogue. Now, is that because whoever directed the film, Panos Cosmatos, is that because he isn't good at writing dialogue? Or is he just able to use character communications through visual style in a more effective way? I don't know. I tend to think it's the latter, but even if you're a weak writer of dialogue, you can use that to your advantage. You can use the more visual elements of it and kind of rely on that to carry your movie forward. If you have weak spots in your directing and your screenplay writing and everything, then use the other parts of making a film to not necessarily hide those weaker aspects of it, but to strengthen the movie as a whole. I think that there's a lot that could have been done visually in terms of editing, pacing, what have you, to maybe make this film stand above the previous two entries. And I'm going to get into a little bit of a spoiler territory for Terrifier 3, so if you don't want to know anything about the film, skip to, I don't know, a certain portion of the video. But anyway, I'm going to get into kind of spoilers for Terrifier 3. So, one of my bigger issues with the film is that you're taking these minor characters, these characters that we're not meant to have any sort of attachment to. We don't have any like preconceived relationship with these characters from the previous films. They're newly introduced to this film, whatever. And you take those throwaway characters, like basically glorified extras, and Art brutally kills them in the most gory, savage way possible. And it's fun to see, it's fun to look at, especially when you're going into these films knowing kind of what they are, is just a gore fest. Then that's all well and good. But then you get characters that come back, like the little brother from Terrifier 2, who was essentially the secondary protagonist of that film. Or you take someone like a newly introduced character who's supposed to have some weight and importance, like the uncle character, and you just kill them off screen. I feel like there's a bit of an issue there. If we're meant to feel the weight of losing those characters, maybe don't kill them off screen. Especially with the little brother, because he's a returning character and we already have a pre-established relationship with him. And even if you're going to do the thing where, oh, it's a reveal that he's dead, it's a reveal that he's the skull in the cage, that's fine, but I don't know, maybe show like a flashback or something so that we have like some kind of better visceral reaction to what happened to him, other than just like, oh yeah, he died like 20 minutes ago, who cares? It feels like an afterthought, and that's kind of what these films in general to me feel like. overall. It's just kind of an afterthought of like the other aspects of the film that aren't the gore, and that isn't Art the Clown. I think the girl who plays Sienna, she does a good job. It feels like she's a couple steps above every other performance in these movies. That being not very good. The people who play like the aunt and uncle and Gabby and like all the other characters in these films, even the little brother in the second Terrifier movie, they all kind of feel like they're just sort of, and I don't mean to be mean, but you're not getting like fucking Daniel Day-Lewis performances from these people, right? Like they're just there to spit out lines and to react to things. And sometimes it's a little more effective than others. You can clearly tell that you're not dealing with like Juilliard grads over here. They're just kind of actors for hire, which is fine. Like that's all well and good, but when you need them to have a lot of emotion in their performances, then it becomes an issue when they can't quite pull it off. So those are my overall thoughts on Terrifier 3 and the Terrifier franchise. I wanted to kind of get it out there just so that it's out there for people to talk about and discuss. I find these films fascinating, and I'm for sure going to check out more if they keep making more, which it looks like they're going to. I find it funny that Terrifier 3 has made more money this weekend than Joker Folie à Deux. I still have to watch that new Joker movie. We're going to talk about it on the next episode of the podcast, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that was my thoughts on Terrifier. Yeah, I might do more of these types of videos, just kind of sitting in my car chilling, especially after I see a new film. I've wanted to make more reviews on new movies, and I always find it hard because motivation is difficult for me to obtain sometimes, especially when I'm always tired. But if I do it this way, then it kind of forces me to talk about these films. And hopefully that will lead to more engagement because they are newer, and we can have a conversation over them if you guys enjoyed this type of thing. So let me know, and I'll see you guys on the next go around. All right. Bye-bye.